It froze on me. Hold on.
It says we're live on YouTube on my screen.
Here we go. And welcome into the latest edition of the Unpaid Interns. It is Friday, May 29th. Austin Render and Tamar share with you here on this great Friday episode. Tamar, how you doing?
I'm doing well. It's sunny outside today. How are you doing?
Hey, if it's sunny, it's good. It's not sunny here yet, but it's going to be, and that makes the day better. We have a great guest coming on the show today, Tamar. Tom Ackerman will be joining us from St. Louis, another one of your St. Louis friends and companions out there in the great city. We'll have him joining us in just a few minutes. We've had a great week of guests with Blake Ahern, Jason Pennick, Zach Kiefer, and Brendan Porath. So just a great week. And next week, to let you know what we're doing a student media appreciation week. We're going to be talking to a lot of student media members from Indiana University to talk about their balance between school and covering sports and the challenges of being a student media member and what some of the perks, and there's plenty of those. And we'll talk all IU athletics next week with a lot of really talented student media members. But today we're going to focus on Tom Ackerman in just a little bit. But let's start tomorrow with some of the headlines. And I think the biggest headline in sports is what's going to happen with the MLB. I mean, Connor and I talked about this on Wednesday, and since then, nothing has changed except for it's gotten even maybe a little worse. I mean, Steven Strasburg came out, or it was Max Scherzer who came out and said, like, there's no reason that we should even talk to the owners right now. We shouldn't even give them our thoughts because their thoughts are so wrong. And it is crazy to see where this is going. It's obviously not a great look for the MLB to be fighting over money in the middle of this pandemic, but that's where we're at. The two sides don't seem close to an agreement, and who knows when we'll get baseball.
It's very interesting that MLB is completely at a standstill right now, while the NBA and NHL, two winter sports, are already having that discussion of returning. So I think it's interesting now that the constant conversation, like you said, is about money. And I think that is what's really been challenging for getting any type of play, any type of practicing happening, because there's that constant battle between the players and the owners. I know that the players union has been very disappointed because they're talking about further payment reductions, and it's very disappointing for the players. And like you said, those agents are talking to the players and saying, well, don't even have that conversation with the owners. So taking it now to the NBA, because that's really coming into fruition, tell us a little bit about how that's becoming. I know we're coming closer to playoff round as we're seeing the NBA start to have more conversations.
Yeah, it seems like there are two avenues. It is the 16-team playoff format that would eliminate the Eastern and Western conferences and would just go with the 16 teams seeded 1 through 16. You go from there. And I think this is a great year to do that. I think if you're going to try and change something, you do it now. I mean, this is a crazy year. There's not going to be any reason to do everything completely normal. And then there's the other one where maybe you take in 20 teams and there's 4 bubbled teams in the Western Conference. Give them a chance to play each other and see who deserves the 8th seed in the West. So those are the two options. I don't think there's an option anymore of the entire NBA, all 30 teams going to Orlando. I don't think that's going to happen. I think it makes sense to just focus on the playoff teams. And honestly, you could take the lead of the NHL. The NHL said, look, we're going to take 24 teams. We normally take 16. This is a different year. We're going to take 24. The NBA could say, you know what? We normally take 16. Let's take 24. So I would not be surprised, or not 24, but 20. I would not be surprised the NBA takes 20. They make a playoff out of it. There's also that World Cup format, which is a way they could do it like the Soccer World Cup, where everybody plays each other in their groups and then teams move on based on round robin games. So I don't know. I don't think they'll do that. That seems a little bit of a stretch, but I really like the 16 teams seeded. Doesn't matter what conference you're in. That feels like the best avenue to go to. But like I mentioned there, Tamar, the NHL is kind of leading the pack in terms of already deciding on a format. They just don't really know when they're going to come back yet.
Right. And they're talking about going straight to the playoffs, which is what you're saying. And that's the potential for the NBA as well. What's been said is that the league wants to move forward now to phase 2. So allowing players to have resume voluntary workouts at their training facilities. That's a huge step. We've been talking about that for the past couple of weeks. We need to, if professional sports are going to continue, they need to start opening up practices so that we can prevent injuries. Correct. So the Players Association right now has approved the 2014 playoff proposal. They don't know when they're going to start yet. But going back to the NBA, I think it's interesting because we're hearing a lot from Damian Lillard in particular, whose team is on that bubble for the playoffs. They're not quite in there. So he's talking about how he's very interested in that, in play, going into kind of having that 20 team playoff proposal, because that'll be better for those bubble playoff teams to be able to get in there, get some games. I know there's that controversy where it's difficult because some people don't want to play the games if they're going to only play a couple games, and that's going to be it. It puts their family at risk, puts them at health risk. But I think it's interesting because that conversation around the enthusiasm is there still. People want to have more fan bases by adding 20 teams instead of just the 16. I just strayed off a little bit, but go back to the NHL, talk about your opinions on what you think is going to be that start date for.
Well, to add to what you were saying, when we talked to Blake on Monday, he was saying how the families are going to come first, and these players are going to be like, okay, I'm going to Orlando, but is my family able to come with me? Like, how does that work? And that's a big thing. Now, the NHL feels like they've got the playoff format. It's just a matter of, do they have a date? Do they have a place? And we'll figure that out as it goes. But it feels like the NHL might be in the best spot in terms of knowing what they're going to try and accomplish here in the coming months. But we'll see. The NBA feels close. The MLB feels not close. And we'll kind of talk about that as we go here today. As we have a guy joining us here from St. Louis who is an expert with the MLB. He's an expert with the NHL. He's an expert St. Louisian. I don't know what you guys call yourselves out there in St. Louis. St. Louisans. Tom Ackerman joins us. Tom, how are you?
St. Louisan, right here. What's up? How we doing?
Right in his garage set up.
I'm coming to you from my garage because last night, this is where I was doing what I call the garage happy hour. So I thought this would be the best spot to just set back up. So I have this little, it's amazing what we can do today, right? By the way, I love the banners, the pennants in the background.
Oh, thank you.
I have this little this little desk on wheels as I'm moving it around. I have an iPad sitting there. I have my iPhone here. I had this actually as a backup last night. I was interviewing the manager of the Cardinals, and I felt so stupid because my iPad was down to 7%. I forgot to charge it. So I'm on this big, starting to grow production on Facebook Live that KMOX is doing. I've got the Cardinals manager. My iPad's down to 7%. He messages me in the middle of it. And he goes, I'm down to 2% on my iPad. So I'm like, well, folks, we're going to have to cut it short. 20 minutes of the Cardinals manager is plenty, though. It's kind of where we are today, right? In this pandemic and in how we distribute content. And we're not going back. This is how we're going to do some of the stuff. If KMOX says, hey, we need you now, then go into the garage or the basement or the kitchen or the living room or wherever and put a little thing together, and here we are. So anyway, that's why I'm in the garage. I thought this would be the best spot. It's a beautiful day here in St. Louis. Got my coffee. I have you. Go Hoosiers. And let's talk.
And I actually was raving about your garage happy hours. That was one of our, I mentioned it in one of the past episodes because that was one of my favorite forms of media content. Anything sports that we can get our hands on, and yours in particular is so fun. I think it's awesome who you've been able to get on. Ozzie Smith, Sterling K. Brown, so many awesome St. Louisans, Austin.
It's been pretty cool. And the formula was, and by the way, when I do those, I can actually do it this way because I have the sponsor behind me. So this is Overhead Door Company of St. Louis. So it started as, and I like to angle it this way so we can see a little more of my garage. But anyway, it started as Tamar, me being on Twitter just in the beginning of the pandemic, knowing that everybody was going through a lot of emotions and needed maybe just a half hour of relaxation or normalcy. So at 5 o'clock every day on Twitter, when I could, I cracked open a beer, showed people what I was having, and said, "Hey, how you doing? Like, let's just talk sports. Let's talk food. Let's talk beer or whatever." And just give people a half hour away from everything. And it was fun. And KMOX picked up on it and said, "Hey, what if you did that on Facebook Live and interacted with listeners?" And I was a little concerned because, first of all, I had been off Facebook for like a year. And so I reactivated my account, got everything together, wondered how am I going to get my followers from Twitter over to Facebook. So for the first two, I had my daughter actually act as my camera, and she looked and asked the questions out loud so that I could answer them. And that was fun. And then my boss, Steve Moore, our program director, said, "What if you got a guest every week? Not like, we like having you on there, but what if we advanced it? Could you get a guest and talk to them for a while?" So I asked Kenny Wallace, the former NASCAR driver, who's a friend of mine. Then in the next week, Kurt Hunziker, who had been let go as the president of the St. Louis Battlehawks of the XFL, he actually was interested in getting some messages out there and some word out there. So we did that. And then Chris Pronger, Ozzie Smith, Sterling K. Brown, and Mike Schilt was yesterday. So it's been fun. I mean, now the pressure's on to start delivering these guests, but the formula tomorrow was basically people that are recognizable, that were in the news, sports, but also St. Louis connection. I thought was nice to get started. But also people that I knew personally, that I was familiar with, that it would be less of an interview and more of just, hey, I'm dropping in on these two people catching up over a drink. And that has worked so far. So.
Well, that's fantastic. I saw you start it with just yourself at the happy hour at 5 o'clock on Twitter. I thought it was a great idea. And wow, it's expanded to, did you ever think it would expand to where it's at right now?
No, I didn't. I thought that it would, I didn't know what to expect really. It's been nice to have people tell me that it's a nice break for them, that they put it in their calendar, or now that they're on Facebook, that they, it shows up here and they're able to see that I'm going live. And so the technology sort of guides them my way. So it's nice. And I know that our company has come to me and said, that we distributed it, not the content, the idea company-wide to all of our stations to show what you can do when you have limited resources. But also they want to make it bigger. So I don't, we're about going to put our heads together to figure out how that is. But I was really grateful to have a sponsor jump in. We've had other interested sponsors, and so that's good. It's a chance to make some money when, we don't have baseball right now. KMOX is the home of the Cardinals. We don't have those games. We don't have that revenue coming in. So we're all challenged with how do we create content that can deliver revenue, because we have to have revenue to be able to pay our employees. So it's a challenge right now, but making the best of it.
What's great about what you're doing is the storytelling. I mean, what's awesome, and what Austin and I are trying to do with this show as well, is trying to get fun stories, fun memories out of people, because that's really what it's been all about, is kind of looking at what we love so much about sports and trying to bring that into our lives now, even though there's not much going on. But for you in particular, you've been connected still to players in the MLB and the NHL, and you are in the position to be able to have some of those conversations of a potential restart. Do you have any intel or opinions on what you think the MLB in particular, or what the Cardinals are thinking about doing for starting some sort of play?
Yeah, I mean, they are. I mean, Mike Schild last night, I can tell you, was in spring training mode. I mean, he told me that they had 6, and I was the 7th Zoom meeting that he had that day. Actually, we were on Facebook Live, but his point was that I was the 7th video meeting. He started the day in a video Zoom with his pitching coaches, Mike Maddox, his bullpen coach, Brian Eversgerd, and Chris Carpenter, the Cardinals Hall of Famer, who has been very much involved in their pitching planning and loves to be in on that stuff. And then they had 5 separate meetings, 2 groups of starters, 2 groups of relievers, one group of their Latin players and Latino and Spanish-speaking players that they were able to bring in, Yadier Molina, to help work with them and talk to them. And they were going over mentality. They were going over bunt plays and pitching defense. Bunt play is kind of funny. If they're going to bring in the DH, they're not going to be dropping down so many bunts. But anyway, but it was what that told me is his mentality is we're going to play. And even if we aren't, I need to get my guys ready to play. So that's the message he's delivering to players. I think the Cardinals, who are paying their employees through the month of June and are continuing to do that, who are trying to take care of their minor leaguers and giving them a stipend, who are very focused on playing. They'd love for it to be here in St. Louis and not have to go anywhere, although their facility in Jupiter is open to players who live there for medical treatment. And then they're able to work out. So players like Miles Michaelis, Paul Goldschmidt, who are dealing with some ailing things, are able to come in and get their treatment. So they're trying, from a baseball standpoint, to go on business as usual. But this is an MLB-wide billion-dollar business that the union and the owners are at odds, and they are far apart, not only on the money, but also on health and safety. So it's hard. It's a challenge, but it requires patience and letting the business sort of run its course and take its course. The players want to be paid a prorated salary. That's what they agreed on March 26th with the owners. The owners are saying, we are, taking a bath here. I mean, we are getting hit extremely hard. We need you to take a pay cut. So they went from a 50-50 revenue split, which the players didn't like because that represents a salary cap, to a pay reduction, and the salary slash is a sliding scale. So the highest paid players get hit the hardest. The players don't like that either. And, their argument among many is, well, when things are going great, we don't get paid more. So, things aren't going well, we're getting cut. The owners, I can't take a side on this because we're talking about 2 business interests here. So I guess what I'm saying is you have to plan, and we have to plan as the home of the Cardinals. Of course, we'd love to see it get going here, but we have to plan for whenever they give the green light that we're ready to go. The players have to be ready. Everybody else, the front office is going to continue to draft and shape the team. So they're trying to go on business as usual, but with the understanding that historically the union and the owners have been at odds before, and now they're going to have to try to work this out. And it might take another week until we figure out what direction they're going.
The NHL's been a little bit different. It feels like they've got the playoff format set. We're not really sure when it's going to happen, but what have you heard on the NHL side of things?
Well, they do seem to be progressing a little bit more. There still has to be an agreement between the NHLPA and the league. But at least they've moved so far to say, yes, we need to agree on health and safety protocols and on logistics. You mentioned the 24-team playoff system, the 2 hub cities. They have to be able to choose those and figure out how they're going to work that out with all of those teams, East and West. The West, we would have loved to have had it here in St. Louis, but it sounds like the favorite is Las Vegas. They have all the hotels right there and the availability all within close proximity. But that's the big thing is logistics, the health and safety. How do you protect the players from getting sick? What happens if somebody tests positive? How do they do the testing? How do they get people in and out safely? That kind of thing. But they have, the reports have come out that the GMs have been told 28 team rosters, basically unlimited goaltenders to be able to use here in camp, 50 people max in terms of staff and personnel. So there are numbers being thrown around, planning being made. Facilities are going to start opening for small group workouts and then sort of move from there. The estimate would be late July, early August that they start playing a season. I was told about a month ago that the latest they could start next season would be December. So you have to sort of work backwards from there. What's the latest they could end this season would be like, October at the very latest. So they have to really get going here for like an August, September postseason. Then, you just sort of cross your fingers. But it does seem like the NHL has advanced a little further than the others. Baseball is still lagging behind here with a very intense negotiation going on between the owners and players.
Well, let's lighten the load a little bit. We've talked a lot of serious stuff. Let's go back to St. Louis Blues, Stanley Cup champions. You're a St. Louis guy. What was that like? What was that moment like when they finally clinched the cup?
I have an attic right above me in this garage, and up there is my Let's Go Blues banner that my daughters made me get, and we nailed each side to a tree. So it was like, trees like this, banner across, and we had it from April all the way through June. We had that banner up there. It was a phenomenal, one of the greatest sports experiences of my life, growing up in St. Louis and being a Blues fan and always hoping that they could get over the hump and always find a way to stumble and stub their toe. The fact that they actually went from the last place team all the way to the Stanley Cup is appropriate. The roller coaster ride that they took us on during the season, it would never be that they would just go through and dominate. It had to be like this, and that's what it was. And even the playoffs, there were so many moments where they could have lost it. I went back and watched Game 7 of the Dallas series. That was the Western Conference semifinals. Pat Maroon scored in double overtime to win the game. He's a St. Louis kid, won it. They advanced to take on the Sharks. I watched that Game 7, and I forgot how many times the Blues could have lost the game. I mean, by inches. I'm like, I cannot believe this. That game should have been over. I mean, the Stars probably should have won the game. The puck almost went in, et cetera. But they didn't. And the Blues got the bounce, got the win, took on the Sharks, had some things go against them, and dominated the rest of the series. And then the Boston Bruins. I mean, we have been tormented by Boston as a city for a long time. The Patriots beat the Rams in the Super Bowl. The Red Sox beat the Cardinals twice, swept them in 2004, beat them in the World Series again in 2013. We have had enough of Boston. And the Bruins lost a chance to win the Stanley Cup at home in Game 7. The Blues went in to that raucous building and took it. And the party actually kind of is still going. It was
still defending champs.
It was beyond belief. The party was everything I dreamed it would be and more. I mean, covering it, was fascinating. Now, I have a long history in covering the Blues, but as the sports director at KMOX, I oversee all of our coverage, and I had very good reporters that had been with the team all year while my focus was more on the Cardinals. For the Blues, I would go to games. I didn't cover them as intensely, but I was around the team quite a bit, spending some time with our sponsors and with management, with the team. So when they went to Boston for Game 7, I stayed back and I told all of our crew, I said, I want you to be there. I want as many people who cover this team to be there. I've seen a lot of great stuff. I'll be fine. I'll stay back and cover the Cardinals. Don't worry about me. You guys experience this, enjoy it, soak in every second. And they won it all. Our group covered it. They were on the ice with the cup afterwards. I mean, just amazing. And I remember Mike Claiborne, he's a Cardinals broadcaster. He came in to do some coverage of the celebration if they were to win it. And we watched the third period together in the sports office at KMOX. And, we cried at the end. We hugged and cried. And we can't do that now. It's social distancing.
No.
We wouldn't be able to do that. But it was an awesome feeling of relief and a lot of fun to see, and some great stories all within. To get to know these guys from a human standpoint was very special. So yeah, really good St. Louis story in a city that kind of needed a little boost. It was an injection that we needed, and it was really great.
What's beautiful about that too, I remember you had a Facebook post after they won and all the celebrations were kind of mulling over, and you put it out there. There's so many storylines. There's so many amazing things that this win brought for the city of St. Louis, how it brought the Cardinals and the Blues together. They were kind of in celebration together. I know that a bunch of the Cardinals players were up rooting for them and were at the games and participating in all the city celebrations. But not only are you a fellow St. Louis and you're a Hoosier, you're aboard the media school, the school in which Austin and I are both in. And also you grew up, you went to Indiana, you are a Hoosier. So let's transition a little bit into you being a Hoosier. Give us some of your favorite memories. What do you love about Bloomington?
I love Bloomington. Bloomington is really where I grew up and became a man, is how I put it. My dad passed away right before I went to college, right after my high school graduation, suddenly of a heart attack. And I actually I second guessed whether I should go to college. I thought, I should stay back here and help my mom. And she pushed me and said, you're going to college. And I know that you're here for me. And I went to IU, and it's where I grew up. I mean, it's where I learned a lot about myself. So beyond the academics and athletics, I think just Bloomington itself is very, very meaningful to me and an amazing place for me. And I feel like I've walked every inch of the place, but every time I go back, I discover something new. It's a very special town. The campus is amazing. The people are great. My sister ended up going there as well. She's 4 years younger than me. So when I graduated in '97, she started the next fall. I go back every year with my daughters. We call it a daddy-daughter weekend, where we go back and go to basketball games. Tomorrow's seen us in action there. And so they get to experience it. Tomorrow, your dad said something to me. The first year I took Erica, my oldest, she's now 13. First year she went with me, she was like 7. And I said that Erica told me that Dad, I don't think I'm ready to leave yet. Like I miss IU already when we were driving back. And he said that's because she sees a different you when you're there. And that is absolutely true. When I'm at IU, that is my happy place. I love it here. Don't get me wrong. St. Louis is awesome. But it's different. A lot of memories come back. A lot of hope and promise comes back. There's an energy about a college campus that's very special. Every year you have new people coming in, new energy, new ideas, new thoughts, new hope. So I love the feel and the energy of a college campus, and the memories of being there are still with me. But I love being on the board of the media school because I feel like I still have some involvement, got my hands in it. Sure, I love going to basketball games. There's nothing like Assembly Hall, and there's nothing like, having a great football program, and I feel like that's starting to come back too. But I have a great passion for just being in Bloomington and experiencing it, and that'll always be the case. Like that'll never ever go away. And I love the fact that it's a short drive, right? I mean, I can just, if I wanted to, what time is it? 10:30 here. I could, I could be there by early afternoon and, go grab something to eat.
Right. And I was just going to say, you are one of the main reasons I chose to be at the media school at IU. I knew I was going to go to Indiana, but my sophomore year of high school, I went to Indiana and I met with you and it clicked. So thank you for making me choose the right decision.
You're my 5-star recruit. I always say, man, you made me look good.
Well, what we do on Fridays here is we do a top 5 Friday. We're going to do different rankings every Friday. And we felt it was only fitting with you and the way you love Bloomington to rank the top 5 restaurants or bars that you enjoy going to when you're in Bloomington. Tamar and I are recently 21 turned people, so we're a little bit less experienced on the bar front, but we'll let you have the first
I can help you with that.
What's one of your top 5 restaurants? We'll just go one at a time. We'll go around in a circle.
I mean, for me, I would say Little Zagreb. You know, Yanko's Little Zagreb is a very, very important place. It's you know, when you were in college, if your parents came into town, that's where you wanted them to take you. But it's become a tradition to go there before games. I just love the vibe of the place. I love taking people there for the first time when they don't know what it is and realize what it is, and when you walk in, you just, you know, you feel an energy about it that is very special. I love that place. You know, great steak, great food. I just love everything about it. Somebody's mowing their lawn next to me, so that might make it a little.
We don't hear it. I don't hear it at all.
Yeah, no, it's fine.
I can close the garage door if need be. Oh, there.
Yeah.
No, so you're all good. And you literally stole the words out of my mouth.
I was gonna say that was
said the
Tamar's
exact same
pick.
thing.
Yeah, that'd be my
That
number.
was
I mean, if we're doing a draft, like that would be my number one pick.
Okay.
And then when it comes to, like, that's the dinner spot.
Yeah.
So that when I think of dinner, that's what I think of. And there are many others, not to disrespect anything else, but that's one that always comes back to me. For lunch, for me, I mean, I'm a Dagwoods guy. I love Dagwoods. Grabbing a sandwich in there just makes me feel like going back to, you know, Saturday afternoons of watching college football with my friends and eating some Dagwoods on the couch. And, you know, I always had some great spots on campus or just on Kirkwood that I love to go up and down, but Dagwoods was definitely there for me. And then, you know, for breakfast, it's Runcible Spoon. I again love the older feel of it. Love walking into a house and sitting down at a table and eating a great breakfast. I love that place. That would go top 3 for me. Then you kind of get into the specialties. So, you know, in the Big Ten, there is no better pizza than Mother Bear's. There just isn't. You know, that's.
And the goldfish and the salads.
Yeah, you know, that really stands out to me. And then for a 5th one, that's tough because once you get to 5, now you're starting to, you know, that, like, you sealed off the top 5 and you're blocking off everybody else. But, you know, since they came back, and I've only been once, so I sat down at the bar by myself. It was my first stop when I got into town recently, and sat at the bar, and everything came back to me. It was great, and that's Yogi's. I mean,
Yeah.
Yogi's was huge for us. It was the closest place to Assembly Hall then. A little different now where it's located, but I love the location. And I would put that in there. So to me, you know, it is about quality of food, but it's about comfort, familiarity, service, vibe. I'd put those as my top 5 right now.
All right, Tamar, follow that up. That's a great list.
So obviously still Yanko's for me, Little Zagreb's. That's all-time favorite when you're with your parents. I've never been without my parents, of course. But you didn't say this, and this is one of the places I'm sure would have been in your top 10, but Buffalo's, the atmosphere, I'm obsessed with. It's so I've been going there. That's just tradition for me. Had to put that at number 2. Been going there with my dad since I was little. You also didn't put Nick's. What's your thought behind that? I mean, their fries are insane.
Well, you know, so I kind of want to reserve Nick's for a separate discussion if I can.
That's
so
fair.
I was kind of, you know, I'm thinking more in terms of a sit down meal, and Nick's to me has never been a sit down meal place. I know it is for a lot of people, but, and not to interrupt your top 5, Tamar, but if I can say something very special about Nick's.
Please.
This is the truth, and it's well documented because I've tweeted this multiple times. Nick's is the greatest bar in the world. And there's a lot of reasons for that. The food is great. But there's so many different areas of it. You can experience it in a lot of different ways. You can do the sit down thing, which is not really my thing there. You can sit at the bar though when you first walk in and make a left. I know everyone likes to go straight and go upstairs, and so do I. I do that all the time. I love the upstairs area. But if you go in, if you ever get a chance during the day or maybe an early evening, but especially like on a Saturday afternoon, go in, make a hard left, go to that bar. There's a wall of TVs. They're all quality TVs, great quality, and they show college sports. And the people that are sitting at that bar are the old school Bloomington college sports fans. They've seen it all. They've been through it all. There's always newspaper there, right? So people aren't really looking at their phones at that bar. They're reading a newspaper or they're talking to each other. I've never been to a place where I've chatted up more strangers than I have at that first bar on the left at Nick's. Then, of course, you can go straight back. That area, you can have a group and play Sink the Biz. You can go upstairs, what do they call that? The hump room, the one that faces out towards Kirkwood. You can go in that room and do like a little private party. But, of course, my path, if I'm not making the hard left, is to go straight up the stairs, snake over to the newer. It was newer when I was in college. They used to have pool tables in there. But that bar, with the jukebox and the people and the huge bar and the noise in there, I've always it's just been my go-to. Nick's is the greatest bar on the planet.
It is the ultimate college bar for sure.
Yeah.
And I recently turned 21. And I went back I went abroad this semester, but before I went abroad, I made sure to get one last Bloomington weekend in there. And I made sure to go in the upstairs section of Nick's so that I can have that real experience before a basketball game. And then I went to the game, but it was the best experience going before. So I can't imagine during a game how rowdy that would be. Top 4 for me. Now this is interesting. I put Poorhouse. I love coffee. So getting to Poorhouse and sitting there, I like some of their like small dishes, but in particular, their coffee is awesome. That's always a location whenever my parents come to. We have to go to Poorhouse. No Starbucks. And then top and final, I would say Mai Tai. It's classic. It's been there a while. That was the first introduction for me to Thai food. The only place, honestly, that and Siam House, the only 2 places I've ever gotten Thai food. So those are my top 5 for Bloomington.
I like that a lot. I'll throw in an honorable mention, and everybody can connect with this one. But Uptown is pretty awesome. But Uptown,
True.
like I treat it a little differently than others. I'm not, even though we had an awesome brunch there with your family tomorrow. I don't. That's really the only time I've ever sat at a table at Uptown. I may sit at the bar a lot of times just by myself before I meet up with people and just have a drink there at Uptown. I think that's a good spot right there. And I like the food too a lot. So
the vibe is awesome. Austin, come on, give us yours.
Well, I can't relate to a lot of what Tom's saying because I turned 21 at the beginning of March, and all of this has happened since then. So I've been to 2 bars, and one of them's on my list. But I like the way Tom did it: breakfast, lunch, dinner, and a couple of extras. For dinner, for me, it's a hidden gem because it's literally hidden right behind Nick's. But I love Osteria.
Great place.
A little Italian place back there. My girlfriend and I, that's one of our big date night restaurants. I think it's really fantastic. It's just kind of hidden. Nobody really knows about
call.
it.
Yeah.
Never had it.
Love it.
Yeah, it's really good. Would highly recommend. For lunch, for me, it's not even that it's amazing, but for me, it's like the perfect college kid lunch after church. We always go to Viva Mas, the New Mexican place by the college mall. Just an easy, cheap, but fun place where we can get drinks and quesadillas and tacos and whatever. And it's a nice, affordable college meal. Breakfast, it's cliche, but Village Deli. My friends from out of town, it's the first place they want to go after they've had it once. They want to go there every time they come.
I feel like you're either a Village Deli person or a Runcible Spoon person. Is that fair?
That's
Very
probably
fair.
fair. Yeah. I don't dislike Runcible Spoon though. I
Right.
find myself at Village Deli more than Runcible Spoon.
Yeah, it's you gravitate to one or the other, but they're
That's
both good.
fair.
Right?
Yeah.
And they're completely different feels as well.
They are.
For me, Nick's is on there. Just the atmosphere. I've never been to the upstairs or the bar part, but I've never played Sync the Biz, and who knows if that's
You
even
will.
going to be a thing after
Oh
all
well,
of
that's
this.
true. That's
But
true.
And he's never been to Kilroy's.
no, I
Never.
haven't been to Kilroy's, not yet. But Nick's is just a great environment. And then for me, the first bar I went to on my birthday, Upstairs Pub. I like that place a lot. It has a nice vibe. Good play, good location. Really enjoyed my night there. So that would be my top 5.
Good choices. Good choices. Upstairs was definitely in the rotation back in the day. Yeah, for sure.
My friends were like, "Where do you want to go?" And I was like, "You take me wherever you want." And they're like, "All right, we're going to Upstairs first."
That's
So
a good first place. Absolutely right. I remember also that when I first was starting out, doing radio was at WIUS. It's now WIUX, but it was S then, and it was an AM station. And the bouncer, the guy at the door at Upstairs Pub, was a listener of the show. I didn't have a lot of those, but he was like, "Hey," I was like, I felt like I was, getting VIP treatment. He's like, "Hey, man, great show today." The show was by the time I was a senior, it was Friday. I did it with Damon Bruce, 3 to 6 p.m. on Friday. I had made the move all the way from overnight, Monday 3 to 6 a.m. when I was a freshman, to Friday 3 to 6 p.m. And the bouncer at Upstairs Pub was a loyal listener of the Tom and Damon show. I thought that was awesome.
That's great. That's so cool. 3 to 6 a.m. That's a tough.
That's how it started. Yeah, the quick story there is when I was a freshman, I reached out to WIUS. I had a friend named Eddie Williamson who worked there, and he was from St. Louis. And he said, you should ask them about their availability. And they said, we don't have any DJ slots open. It was an alternative rock station. We don't have any spots open. Typically freshmen don't get that opportunity, but maybe you can check back with us, in sophomore year, we might be able to get something for you. But right before Christmas break, I got a call from them, and they said, we have some really good news. We do have an opening for second semester, a 3-hour shift. Would you like to take an on-air shift? And I'm like, you know what? I don't care when it is. I would love it. Yes, I'm in. And they said, great. It's Monday, 3 to 6 a.m. And I'm like, done. Awesome. And I lived in McNutt, and I knew I could walk there, and my mom was like, are you crazy? You can't do that. I'm like, Mom, it's fine. When I register for classes, I'll make sure I don't have anything on Monday. So we played intramural basketball on Sunday nights. I would stay up until 2:30 in the morning and then walk over and do the show from 3 to 6. At that point, it wasn't even an AM station then. It was FM cable, which meant the only way you could hear it is if you had a cable to plug into your dorm room wall. And my roommate said he listened to me. I'm not sure, but said he did. But the point was, I had a cassette rolling, and so I listened to myself, and I was just basically introducing songs and doing the weather and the time, but I was on the air, and no matter what it was, I was going through those reps, and each semester I got advanced to a greater role, and I was able to do some play-by-play for basketball, football, baseball, and it really did give me the confidence to do what I'm doing today. There's no way that I would have been able to be on the air at KMOX at age 23 without college radio. Not a chance. And the opportunities that they have today at the media school, unbelievable. Way more than we had, and I'm very proud of that.
Well, that's awesome. I'm
is
right
that
there with
you
you.
did exactly what we've been told, Austin and I, is to take any opportunity and just say yes. But do you have any advice now that Austin and I are going to be seniors, our last year at Indiana? What advice do you have? I know it's so sad, but I want to get your advice of what we should do.
My senior year, I probably worked harder and had more fun at the same time. I think I was more aware of that it was coming to an end. So I probably studied and paid attention and really got myself ready for the quote unquote real world, and got myself more disciplined than I ever did. But I also soaked in being a college student as much as I ever did, because I knew that it was my last year. So I would say just really, take in this opportunity that you won't have again, to be a college student, to enjoy everything that Indiana University provides you. But then as you're looking for a job, understand that it is hard work. It is not always glamorous. It does take a lot of sometimes tough nights and making mistakes and learning from them, and willing yourself through some difficult times. But the root of all of that is love, that you love what you do. If you truly love what you do, that will take over everything. Like, you'll show up to your job and really look forward to it, and know that you're grinding through a project because you love this, because you know what the outcome will be, that you'll be proud of the product, and that, what I always call a good tired, that sort of fog where, after you call a game or after you're done with something, you take off your headset, your headphones, you set it down, and your head's kind of spinning and you're exhausted, but you feel awesome about it. Like, that's love. That is real love. And to this day, I really love doing this. And if there was ever a day that I didn't, I promise you, I'd go find something else that I love doing. There are other things that I love to do, but I really do love this. And just remember that. That's where it will all come. The money will come, the pride, the accolades. There will be ups and downs, but as long as you love what you do and you have passion for what you do, that's what's going to carry you through your career.
That's so heartwarming. Well, thank you. I wish we could keep you on forever, but I don't want to keep you for too long. But we both really appreciate you coming on, talking sports with us, talking IU memories, and just being here to talk with us.
I appreciate you guys having me, and I'd be happy to come back and do it again. And thanks to everybody at the media school and IU Sports Media and everyone that's putting a lot of hard work in. I mean, you're making us look good, really. I mean, the more that IU continues to grow, makes us very, very proud as alums. And, I can't wait to get back there. When the time is right, I know we'll all be back inside Assembly Hall and pulling for the teams that we love.
Absolutely. Well said. Well, thank you, Tom. Enjoy the rest of your weekend. We'll keep tuning into your garage happy hours.
Thank you very much. Yeah, here it is. There's the garage.
Great.
Appreciate it, guys.
Thanks, Tom.
Appreciate it. Thank you so much.
See you later.
Well, that was awesome, Tamar. Great Indiana insight. Great insight, really, just into life from Tom Ackerman, who left us with such great information, not only for the two of us, but for hopefully others who will watch and listen to this in the coming days. What a good list here. Let's read through them. I jotted some notes down here. Top 5 restaurants for you: Little Zagrab's, Buffalo's, Nick's, Poorhouse, and Mai Tai.
There we go.
For Tom, it was Zagrab's again, Dagwood's, Runcible Spoon, Mother Bear's, and Yogi's. For me, upstairs, Nick's, Village Deli, Osteria, and Viva Mas. Pretty good list there, folks. And there are plenty that did not make that list. Do not feel like we are excluding other restaurants, because Bloomington's a hub of food. There's so much good local food there. And we're just trying to highlight a few of them. But Tamar, what do you think? What takeaway from what we just heard?
First of all, I could talk about that forever. I could talk about Bloomington food for an entire show for 2 hours. I grew up going to Bloomington saying, okay, what I want to do, I'm going to go to Buffalo's, we're going to hit a basketball game, and then the next day, Dagwood's, Nick's. Like, we had our plan. We knew what we were going to do. But Tom just had some great insight also. I know the first half was a bit heavy because of all that's going on and all the uncertainty within the MLB. But he did give us some hope that the Cardinals, for one, are looking to play and are keeping that momentum going. same as the NHL. They already have a plan in place, but he's really Tom gave us a lot of hope just to say, even if the MLB doesn't go on, the players and owners are still in the mindset to say we want to have some sort of entertainment and play, and we want sports. So what about you? What were your takeaways?
Yeah, I would agree with that. It was a little heavy, but we had to get through that stuff because he's a knowledgeable guy when it comes to the MLB and the NHL. And I think we're a ways away, but he said it right. We got to be patient. We got to kind of wait because, I mean, even though the NHL has it figured out, they're probably not going to start until late July or August. And so
Right.
the MLB just needs to be patient. We need to be patient with them. It's two business organizations trying to butt heads a little bit. So I think somebody will win that battle. But I just think Tom is a guy who loves life. He loves what he does. He loves talking to people like us. And he's a guy that if you can live your life like Tom Ackerman, you're doing a pretty good job. So I think it was great to have him on.
Oh, I completely agree. And to that end too, when the Blues won the Stanley Cup, I know for a fact he took it as his own celebration as well. He is invested in this city. He's invested in being a Hoosier in Bloomington, Indiana. And that just wherever he is, Tom is such a huge, great presence for around anyone that he meets. So it was so wonderful. I'm so happy that we got to have him on this early in the game.
Absolutely. Well, thanks to Tom for joining us. Thanks to Tamar for co-hosting here today. You'll be back next week in our Student Media Appreciation Week. We're starting on Monday. Connor Hines will be with me. We're talking to a couple of IU students. We're talking football. We're talking baseball. We're trying to hit all the aspects of being a student media member here at Indiana. So I'm really excited about next week. We've had a lot of great professional guests, but I hope you guys get a good sense of what student media is like as we try to attack that as we start June tomorrow. It starts June next week. So that is
crazy.
That is crazy. But thanks to Tom, thanks to Tamar for the latest episode of Unpaid Interns. Have a great rest of your weekend. We will see you at Monday, 11 a.m. right here on YouTube and also wherever you find your podcast. Have a great weekend.